Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another Brony Debates Live. I hope you're all doing well out there. Let's have a good start to the weekend. Anyway, today we are talking about sequels at the request of my good friend Story Edge, who's been on the show a couple of times before. But he specifically said, let me see if I should have had this ready already. Where is it? There we go. He specifically said, when I asked for topic suggestions yesterday, something like what makes a good sequel or talking about the challenges of following up on something well-loved with a sequel or a spiritual successor. So I asked him what exactly he meant by that right before the stream, and he said I don't know if it was anything in particular, it just kind of popped into my head, but talk of G5 made me think about the added aspect of difficulty in following up on something well-loved. So I think that's a pretty good topic. He wasn't able to make the stream tonight, so instead we got on some equally good folks here. We've got Cruizer Brony joining us as usual. How are you doing today, sir?
Better now that I got my base back.
Good. Just don't do that. Don't do that on when we're live here. We've got DJ. How are you doing today, sir?
Greetings and bienvenue, everybody. Let's talk about the movie industry. Yay!
Yeah, my favorite. We got Neo Anton joining us tonight, who apparently had some thoughts on this. How's you going, Neo?
I'm doing good.
Good. And joining us tonight is Angel of Speed. It's been a little bit since you've been on the show. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Getting ready to talk about some sequels.
All right. So, let's give a big shout out real quick to our very generous supporters on Patreon, a bunch of which are in the on the show tonight. But I'm especially grateful to the $10 and up tier. These are Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak Ministries, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Senko, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, who's with us tonight, Rein-Kun, Morningstar, Pony Cordero, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden MacManx, EasyModeGamer, Kanto Acrylic VA, ZoroArc720, Mr. Sonic 31, and Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. Please go check out all their links in the description. They make some pretty good stuff as well. Anyway, what is it about sequels, actually? Because we all know some really bad sequels. We all know some really good sequels. So let's just get some initial thoughts going around the table here. I'll start from the left of the thumbnail and work my way right. What do you guys think makes a good sequel? Cruiser.
Well, some of my favorite sequels were Clerks 2, Rainbow Rocks, quite evident of that one. The various Harry Potter movies, in my opinion, those were good. Those were good sequels. Some people would like to say Terminator 2 or The Purge Anarchy because you didn't have to see the first movie to get them. Those are rare exceptions, guys. Like, let's get that right off the bat. That is a very rare exception to sequel making. But what I'm expecting is something that's going to continue the story or take the story in a different direction that we might not have expected. Because when you look at the Harry Potter films, it's the end of year one. When you go into the second movie, The Chamber of Secrets. And some time has passed. You don't need to see everything. And it's like what's going to happen now that you're in your second year at this school. And as for Rainbow Rocks, they developed more with Sunset. They had a really good soundtrack. And try to see a bit more about what magic is doing in this world.
All right, so to summarize, you like the stuff that expands on the previous plot, correct?
Yeah.
Alrighty then. DJ, what do you think makes a good sequel?
I'm in a very similar boat to Cruisers. I try to simplify it a little bit more. Like, a good sequel continues the story, but it also has to work with what was given before. Like, it's fine if there's new information, but I've seen, like, some sequels are, like, they've defeat the big bad, and oh no, there's suddenly another big bad that's never been set up. There's nothing leading to this, and like, sure, it continues the story, but like, there couldn't have been a hint of that there before. Like,
Well,
I like a sequel that'll continue the story, but still understand where it came from.
that's the type of thing when it got so popular and the original people didn't think it was going to get popular, so they didn't plan that far ahead. So they just, but it's popular enough that if we make it again, we'll make more money. So we'll just do the same thing again. At least that's my theory.
That's still bad writing.
I know it is. I'm not saying. I'm just saying what I think causes that kind of thing. Neo, what do you think makes a good sequel?
Continuing from where the first movie semi left off, not what is it? Pretty much keeping in the same universe, but building on top of what they built before.
Okay, so we've got 3 of roughly the same answer here. Angel, what do you think?
Gonna have to say I agree with all 3 of these. Internal consistency is important. Set up things, all that kind of stuff. And it also has to be good, but that goes without saying.
Mm-hmm.
Like good writing and all that.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead here and give us a little bit of contention because I don't yes, that type of thing can be important for a sequel if continuing the story is a goal. However, when I think of sequels, the first one that always comes to my head is Deadpool 2. And the reason for that is because when I think of sequels, 90% of the time my first reaction is, why did we need a sequel? How are you going to pull a sequel out of this plot? With the Equestria Girls franchise, there was plenty to work with, right? So I was like, okay, yeah, we need more of this. We got all this stuff that just happened here. It's a good basis, but this can't be all there is. And then we got all those expansions in the later movies. With Deadpool, that was probably, the craziest example of how the heck are you going to pull a sequel out of a joke character like this? But then what they ended up doing is the second movie, if you guys have seen it, has almost nothing to do with the first movie. It sort of picks up where the last movie ended off, right? So Deadpool 1 was all about him coming to grips with the fact that he's ugly now because he's a mutant with cancer, and then trying to get back his kidnapped girlfriend. So Deadpool 2 starts off, him and his girlfriend are together now and they're trying to start a family. And but she dies right at the beginning of the movie and creates a completely new movie that has almost nothing to do with the original. So you don't know. I think that it's important, but what I think you guys are missing when it comes to that for sequels is that in order for it to expand on what's already been there, that had to have been part of the plan in the first place. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I could probably say.
I kind of get what you're saying, but I also kind of stand in contention because I did not like Deadpool 2.
well, okay, so let's...
I get what you're trying to say, but still, the example still works with what's given. It still does continue the story. It just brings the original story to an end and continues on from there. To quote Tangle, they found another dream, even if it's full of blood, gore, and people literally being torn to shreds for no reason.
Mm-hmm. So, where is the point of contention just that you didn't like Deadpool 2, or is it something in my thesis that you disagreed with?
Very little bit of the not liking Deadpool 2. I'm just saying it's not as different as the example makes it sound, because it is still building on what was there. We get more X-Men. We get a bit more about Deadpool's personality as he's put through a different kind of experience. It's still continuing the story, just not the same story trend. It's still the characters moving through their life, because that's just kind of how that movie was telling the story.
Interesting. Does anybody else want to add or take away from this line of thought?
Well, at least when it comes to Deadpool 2, in some ways I do think that film is better than the original, but just because the first movie was really more of a proof of concept. It was just kind of showing that they can make a movie based on this character that is known for these wisecracks and breaking the fourth wall. But that can only take you so far. So with Deadpool 2, they were able to expand more on the characters, the stories, and building this world.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so does that... I'm sorry if I missed the point here, but how does that add or take away from what I was saying?
I would say it adds to it. For some reason, you guys froze on my end, so there's a part of it that I didn't hear. But when it came to Deadpool 2, I think it adds to it.
Okay. So what you guys are saying is that my example of a sequel that doesn't necessarily meet what I think is an example of something that doesn't necessarily meet your criteria for a good sequel, and you're saying that yes, it actually does still meet all those criteria. Is that what I'm getting?
I'd say so.
Alrighty then. Neo, do you have any examples that you can think of a sequel in general? Now, keep in mind, it doesn't just have to be movies. We've also got cartoons. We've got TV shows in general. We've got video games. Shoot, it could even be music. Can you think of an example of a sequel that you would say is a good sequel, but doesn't necessarily meet your criteria? Or does everything absolutely need that criteria in order to meet that criteria in order to be a good sequel?
I'm still thinking about it. I have a good example for a really good one. I'm trying to think of one that wasn't that really well that I like. The only thing that comes to mind is, what is it? I'm trying to find it again. Of course, Cars 2, but I feel like everybody can agree on that one.
In defense of Cars 2, it's still a fun movie, even if it is dumb. Just don't think about it too much.
I wasn't even thinking about it. I just didn't like it that much. And of course, Sing 2 was another one that I really think they couldn't innovate on that so much more than what they did. It just was pretty much the same exact thing, just on a bigger stage. But if I had to say a game or a TV show or something that did something way more better, well, there are two of them that I know, a TV show and a game, that just blew everything out the water of just improving on everything. I think the game would have to be Borderlands 2, because the first game, it had a good story, but at the same time, it didn't have like any type of real hook. It more like, hey, this is a loot and shoot. We have a good story. We have some fun characters, but the villain really wasn't that threatening. But then when they came up with the sequel, the whole writing team must have got fired, and they must have hired a whole new writing team for the second game, because as soon as you start the game, Handsome Jack is just the best villain entirely in that second game. Like they realized what they did wrong, they actually improved on everything.
Okay. Now how so? Now when you're talking about video games here, you're talking about two entirely different types of mediums of storytelling. There's just so much more you can do with video games, and if you've got the time, the energy, and the budget really, and the skill to put into it, you can have several different branching pathways that, tell an entirely different experience. The example I always think of that is, Shadow the Hedgehog, which, what does that have? Like something in the vicinity of like 300 unique endings?
326 to be exact.
320. I knew you were going to know that, Angel, so thank you.
Lol. You were saying?
Yeah, so what do you do? What does that sequel do differently that adds on to it and makes it a good sequel in your opinion? Neo.
One, I would have to say that having a villain that actually taunt you from the beginning instead of a villain that you meet halfway through the game is one of the best improvement, because you automatically know, okay, this is the guy I'm up against. But in the first game, it's more like, oh, I'm up here, I'm looking for like this vote, and you don't realize who the actual villain is like until you get way farther into the game. Another thing that they improve on is just how they actually express the characters. Of course, in the first game, they didn't have no way to actually give the character like express, like it's more like they give them an expression, but at the same time, not really. They never had like intros onto them that much, or like show off how loony or how their personality is. In the second game, that is full force. You would definitely understand where the character coming from and all that. And actually enjoy being around the character, especially hearing them talk, because in the first game they had nobody really talking. It would pretty much, you had to read paragraphs on top of paragraphs.
All right. So they managed.
Talking about Shadow the Hedgehog. What was Neo talking about?
Neo was talking about Borderlands.
Yeah.
One interesting video game series that took the sequel route in a different direction, at least as far as I know, is Resident Evil. Because if you look at the very first Resident Evil game, that started with a specific set of characters, but the sequel took place during that first one took place in the Spencer Mansion. The next one took place with a different set of characters in a new location, but just dealt with a different set of circumstances.
Okay. So what exactly makes a bad sequel then? Is there the same criteria for it being a bad sequel, just doesn't add anything? Or is there more to it than that? What do you guys think?
Honestly, I think there's many different variations that can make for a bad sequel. The number one is you're just doing the same thing again. It's just basically a retelling, which is every single Mario game. The addition is the other. Another one is how to word this. You kind of what I brought up before is where it doesn't fit in very well with the first one. It kind of just goes off and does its own thing, which it can still be decent, but in some of those cases, you might as well have just made it a different series with a different movie, because like none of it makes any sense. There's more, but I should let other people talk too.
Okay, so guys, what else goes into a bad sequel aside from just not doing anything? Now, from what I could understand, listening to DJ there, it sounds like that if you just do it again, then you're just not adding on to which goes back to the original point that we were making here of what makes a good sequel. Is there anything else that makes a bad sequel aside from just not adding on anything on, or how is not adding anything or doing the same thing again? How are those different?
The only thing I can think of talking about something that should have been good, like technically they did build upon it, but also it still wasn't that great to me, would have to be Frozen 2. Like Frozen 1, solid. Frozen 2, it felt like I was watching something that sort of went straight to DVD by that point.
Well, Disney has always had a real problem with sequelitis of movies. Like usually most of their movies, they're Renaissance movies. You know, like The Little Mermaid 2 for no reason. The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2 and 3 somehow.
There's a third one?
I think there is. And I think
I don't remember there being that I know of are Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, well, yeah, maybe I'm getting confused then. But yeah, there's
Aladdin 3 slaps. I don't
Disney,
care what you say.
Well, I haven't seen Aladdin 3, so I'll take your word. But there's, as far as I could tell, Disney and horror movies in general have the worst of the sequelitis. So what more to a bad sequel is there aside from just not adding on to anything?
Well, there's breaking continuity for one thing.
Okay. I could definitely get behind that. Continuity is one of the most important things to me. What sequels can you think of off the top of your head that really broke their continuity?
Well, one that comes to my mind, and this was really an error in marketing and advertising, not so much the movie, but Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Because after Halloween 2, they killed Mike Myers. That should have been sequel proof. And to an extent, it was. The creator decided to turn this into an anthology series and have it be like a different monster or character that they're dealing with each and every single movie. So instead of it being around this killer, it was about this mad scientist, I guess you could say. But because it was called Halloween 3, I think people got the impression that Mike Myers was going to be in this thing. If it was just called Halloween Season of the Witch, I think people would have been a bit more accepting of it, because now people are starting to realize that the film, decades later, is actually quite good.
Well, I still think if you tack the Halloween name onto it, you're gonna get people expecting it to be a certain way, or to have Mike Myers in it. So I can't see any way around the marketing for that. But continue on.
Well, I think they even said that it was supposed to be an anthology series afterwards, but people did not care. They just wanted more Mike Myers. I guess the other thing that could be said is maybe audiences' expectations.
Okay. Well, that's not really something that you can control or anticipate, really. So I wouldn't put the quality of a sequel on audience expectations. But it can certainly be hard when you've got two movies starring one character, and then you switch. I don't see how it wouldn't be jarring to the audience. I would have personally just made a different movie series. Just called it something else, and it probably would have done just as good.
I don't know, because if you were naming the movies again with the anthology style, like again, Halloween Season of the Witch, or if they did Halloween Rise of the Dead, Halloween Rise of Dark Moon, I think something like that would get across people's heads that, okay, this is an anthology series.
Alrighty then. So let me ask you this, guys. Do people really want sequels? And I'm not excluding examples where the end of the movie leaves off on a cliffhanger, or something that is 100% meant to be, hey, we couldn't fit the whole story into one movie, so we're going to have multiple movies, kinds of thing. And if the first one that always comes to mind there, well, actually no, never mind that. I was gonna say something, then I realized I don't know for sure if it actually was the case. But or maybe like the Harry Potter movies. Those were based on a series of books that were already out. So you knew at the end of each movie that there was going to be more. So if there were things unresolved, we knew it. So excluding examples like that, do people really want sequels, or is it just kind of a thing that comes out through marketing, where it was really popular, so they make another one, and then people recognize it and go to see it because they enjoyed the first? What do you guys think it is?
I think they're open to it. I don't want to say they hate it or they love it. I think they're just open to it, because no one outright said they wanted Cobra Kai, which is the sequel to the Karate Kid series. But when they got it, people loved it.
Well, that's because it was very good, but who wanted Karate Kid 2 and Karate Kid 3?
I don't know. I don't remember the landscape of pop culture when those came out.
Does anybody else have any insight to this? Why do you think why do we think sequels are successful? Or do people actually want sequels?
I think people do want sequels, because I know there's been plenty of movies I've gone to and was like, man, I can't wait for them to do another one, because for a lot of those ones where I feel like it's like there's a world there, there's more things you can explore, maybe there's threads left open where you could explore into that. Or like one of the movies I always wanted a sequel to was Disney's John Carter. I thought that would have made for an excellent maybe trilogy or so. Of course, that one got doomed like a lot of those movies at that time, but still, it was just a very interesting world with great characters that I would have loved to have seen go on another adventure, because there was still plenty of Mars to see. And I think that's a good way for sequels to work, is when there's other things to explore. Like, even though it was a bad movie, I kind of thought a Frozen 2 would have been neat to explore more of the magic in that world. But of course, I would also say there's movies that don't need a sequel, which I think we'll get to that later.
Indeed. Neo, I haven't heard it from you in a little bit. Do you have any thoughts?
Thinking more like 50-50, because I'm thinking about one show, The Infinity Train, because every season it's pretty much like a standalone thing, even though if you watch them, it build up on top of each other. But also, I think another fun thing about Infinity Train, you can just switch up the orders and you still be entertained no matter which season you watch.
Okay, so well, that's not meant to. That sounds like a show that's not meant to have multi-season continuity.
Yeah.
It does, which is nice.
So here's something about sequels I'd like to address from the chat, because ChucklyFun just said we got The Devil is a Part-Timer 2 announced, and everyone is hyped about that. Now, I enjoyed The Devil is a Part-Timer. I watched the first season of that many years ago. But does that even count as a sequel? Or is it just the second season of the anime? I don't know if second seasons count as a sequel, especially when they're based off of an ongoing manga. What do you guys think about that?
I don't think extra seasons count as sequels.
I only think that counts if it's not an adaptation.
So
which is a rare thing these days.
Right, and that leaves the question: are the Harry Potter movies sequels?
They're movies, not TV shows, so yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they are because the books are sequels.
Okay, I think I see what's going on here. So,
if you're going back to the original medium, that's different.
Can we think of any examples of sequels that were better than the original?
Well, I already said in the beginning, those are very rare exceptions, like Terminator 2 and The Purge Anarchy.
Now, I would not have said that Terminator 2 could be fully understood without seeing Terminator 1, though.
A lot of people say you don't need to see the first one to get the second.
So what makes Terminator 2? Is there anything else other than just the adding on to the story of Terminator 1? Is there anything that adds other than that makes Terminator 2 better than Terminator 1?
I haven't watched those movies in a while, so I couldn't tell you.
Can anybody else fill in this question then?
I've never seen Terminator, so
Haven't seen them, so no comment.
My goodness.
I just heard they were good.
I seen it. I trying to think of reasons. I really can't. Every time I think about the second one and why the second one was so good, it mainly because, oh yeah, the first one, you have to fight against the Terminator. This time you have a Terminator as a friend, as you fight a Terminator. They're like, oh, yeah, this is way more cooler than the first one.
Yeah, I do know that in the first one, that Arnold's character was the bad guy, but in the second one, he was the good guy.
Yeah, and that was a cool twist for like this ending of the first act of the movie. If I'm understanding it correctly, or something in the intro, because they had the T-1000 chasing them. And then all of a sudden, the T-800 shows up with, Schwarzenegger, and so Sarah was running from both of them for a little bit until she saw the T-800 defend her. So, That's certainly a neat little twist. But what else we got?
I think
I have
Shrek
one.
2 is more popular than the first one.
What was?
Shrek 2. Of course, that had to come up sooner or later.
Now I'm the only person on the planet, as far as I can tell, that thinks Shrek did not need even one sequel, and that Shrek 2 is not better than Shrek 1. So what is it exactly about Shrek 2 that everyone likes so much?
The song.
I need a
Jokes.
hero.
Really?
That, and just the build up towards that.
A half effort cover of a much better 80s song is what puts that movie above the.
I mean, speaking personally, I find it a much more entertaining movie. The first one is fine, but honestly, it's a bit too cynical for my liking in many parts. And there's a lot more humor in Shrek 2 that I enjoy. And I think it hits a lot of people better.
I suppose I can see that on a subjective level, but like the cynicism is what I really enjoyed about Shrek 1. I thought was the best aspect of Shrek was that it was just taking every opportunity it could to kick Disney right in the butt, you know? And that's what I thought made it a halfway decent parody of what it was supposed to be.
I mean, you can argue it does that even more in the second one than the first, because you do have a lot more of the princess trope. You have the fairy godmother, who's now the villain, Prince Charming, who's a dick. And then you got the addition of another likable character in Puss in Boots. And you definitely feel a lot more chemistry between Shrek and Fiona in the sequel. In the first one, there's not a lot of chemistry there.
Now, you see, I disagree with that too. I mean, the chemistry was certainly carried over, and we got to see what the married life was like in Shrek 2. But I was personally, I had no problem with the chemistry between Shrek and Fiona in the first movie.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it in the first one, but it's not as strong as is portrayed in the second.
Mm-hmm. But that's another one. Shrek is another one with sequelitis, because even if the second movie was good, after that it just drops off a cliff. How many Shrek movies are there? Are there like 5 or 6? Four?
Are we talking about with Boots and Boots?
Four
That,
main Shrek
five or
movies
six.
and one Puss in Boots movie and a sequel to that coming soon.
There's several Puss in Boots movies.
There's only one right now.
The second
Really?
one's coming out in like November or something.
Interesting.
And we get another Shrek movie.
I hope we don't.
We 100% will. This is DreamWorks.
They can just absolutely knock it out of the park with the perfect trilogy of How to Train Your Dragon. And then they keep making Shrek movies.
Well, they kind of dropped the ball on How to Train Your Dragon with the TV show extremely hard.
Oh yeah, I saw
Recent
one
TV show.
Which one?
I didn't know there was more than one
newest
TV
one.
show.
The
The
one
one
that's
that
set
takes
in
place
modern
in
day, I
daytime.
think.
Hold
Yep.
on, because there was the one that was on Cartoon Network, there was the one that was on Netflix, and now the one that's on Hulu, which I will not watch.
And the Hulu one, the one where they extremely dropped the ball.
In
Which
so
is
many
bad
ways.
because I was
than one.
interested in that one.
So okay, I'm a little lost here. Tell me about these show. Well, I watched one episode of the How to Train Your Dragon show a while ago. That I knew about. I didn't know there were more, but I couldn't because that show sucked. And so now there's more. So tell me about the one that's on Hulu right now.
It's
So
woke.
the best way to describe it is the first few seasons, well, not season, but the first few versions of the TV show took place in between the movies. So it pretty much filled in a lot of the gaps. But for some weird reason, they decided to make it more into modern times. And for some weird reason, we have cell phones and technology with dragons. And it's just extremely weird.
Well, it's supposed to be a follow-up to the end of 3, where it said maybe someday the dragons will return. So they went with the modern day, from what I understand. And I was kind of looking forward to that because modern day fantasies are my jam. I love those. But
Well, anything
it's
from
not
the-
very good.
Anything can be good if you write it correctly. What were you going to say, Angel?
And then they decided to rehash the first movie in the new show, or so I've heard.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the biggest things that I've seen with sequels in general and how to screw them up. It is not good writing to retell the story of the first sequel, or the first sequel. It's not good writing to retell the story of the first movie, but just make everything bigger. And
Star Wars.
yeah, exactly. You know, it is same exact story beats, almost the same exact twists, but now just everything is bigger. Everyone's able to just jump straight into their abilities.
JJ sure loves making things bigger.
Yeah, and now the Death Star is an entire planet, and we're gonna blow up 5 planets instead of just one. Nothing makes any.
We have hundreds of Death Stars.
Yeah, exactly.
There are Death Star like Imperial Star Destroyers with Death Star powers.
That third one was a mess.
Well, that's the thing of sequels like that is really ultimately what it comes down to, because I think, like I said at the beginning, you can have good sequels that don't really expand on anything, and sometimes you can have good sequels that even tell a similar story or the same, but you cannot under any circumstances have bad writing or characters that we can't relate to. And that's all that is. I was talking to my friends earlier this week, and I was saying, well, all of Star Wars the new Star Wars trilogy can be written off, can be explained away by the fact that it was written by sexist narcissists, and sexist people cannot write good stories, and neither can narcissists. And these are the two of those and the people that produce this are both of those things. So that's just going to make it even worse. But we can always definitely tell when a sequel is just a cash grab. Like, it doesn't, like, we don't, and sometimes, especially in the modern day with Twitter, people are really good at saying this as, I don't need to make it good. You're going to watch it anyway. You're still going to give me my money. And then that's still going to justify me making more of these crappy things, which usually, and in fact, I think if I can remember correctly, like the first person to really just explicitly say that was Michael Bay with Transformers. It's like, I don't need to put effort into it. I don't need to make it good. You guys are gonna go watch it anyway, which is why I've been saying to people, hey, don't watch movies. just don't. If people are gonna do things like that, just don't even give them the time of day. I remember, it's a little bit of a sidebar here. I remember when the Emoji Movie came out, and everybody was just like, okay, this is the line. This is where we draw the line in the sand. Nobody's going to go see this movie, because we have got to send a message to producers in Hollywood and, in general, that this type of thing, and it's like, well, we know we're gonna want to go see it and rant about how bad it is, but just don't, just because you're gonna need to give them money. Don't do it. Don't even give them the press. And then every single person on YouTube was like, leaned and looked at the camera and went, I'm secretly gonna go see the movie, and I'm gonna be the only one that sees it and reviews it, and I'm gonna get all that viewership. But everybody did that, so everybody went and saw the movie anyway.
Well, I can think of one movie where people pretty much collectively all decided to not see it, and I've only seen like maybe 1 or 2 reviews of it, and that was Gem and the Holograms.
Oh, really? I thought you were gonna say Morbius for a second, but yeah.
Morbid time.
Yeah, at
Morbius
least
was fine. It's not good, but it was fine.
I honestly, I don't really watch a whole lot of Disney or Marvel movies anymore. I have lost so much trust in them that I just don't want to give them my money.
Yep, and that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about here, is that there's so many just diehard Star Wars and Marvel fans out there that they're gonna go see it regardless,
I mean, I ain't watching Andor. Andor is just stupid.
All right, I don't know what that is. So
It's the newest Star Wars Disney Plus TV show focusing on the guy from Rogue One.
Yeah, and they blatantly said like it'll be a commentary on this Trumpian world. Did not
It's
even hide the ball.
Trumpian?
Yes.
Yeah, they literally said Trumpian.
The Trumpian. Oh, God.
That doesn't sound like a real word.
You know, I'm just going to go to California with a baseball bat and just beat the narcissism out of these people. That's what I'm going to do.
There is a recent movie, a recent sequel that is actually a lot better than the original.
Yeah.
And I had to be reminded of it because there's been so much trash lately. Top Gun Maverick.
I've heard about that, but I haven't seen it. So what's really good about Top Gun?
Okay, so I'm not coming at this from nostalgia because I watched the original Top Gun the day before, and I'm sorry to say, the original Top Gun is boring. Top Gun is a very boring movie.
You're going to say that when you're on the highway to the danger zone.
Yes, it's a very boring movie.
Alrighty then.
Top Gun Maverick is so much fun. It is so cool. The emotions are so strong between the characters to the point where, like, honestly, you do not need to see the original Top Gun to watch Top Gun Maverick and understand everything that's going on. It is made very clear without exposition, the characters' relationships, what has to happen, the struggles they're going to be going through, and the struggles the main character is having to go through with his age. And I'm trying not to spoil it because I want people to keep going out and seeing this movie. Top Gun Maverick is making so much money this year. It is amazing. Like, honestly, it is so good. The characters, the story, it all is so much better than the original, and you don't even need the original to understand everything.
Alrighty then.
Like, just throw the original Top Gun in the trash where it belongs.
So I have a couple of things I'd like to go over here before we really get into audience participation. One of them is, at what point is a sequel in name only? And here's the example I'm going to give or the motivation I'm going to give for this question here is my first Clerks movie was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Right? Has everybody here seen that movie?
I've never seen a single thing have to do with Clerks.
Okay, well,
I have seen it.
Yeah, I know you would have seen it. Neo, have you seen it?
Nope. I keep thinking about the TV show. I didn't know there was a movie.
An Angel?
No.
You see, I've never seen the Clerks TV show, but I knew it existed. I've seen a couple of clips of it. It looks all right. But anyway, yeah, I didn't know what Clerks was, and I just watched Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, and I thought that was a really good standalone movie. It is so far removed from Clerks, and later I learned about Mallrats. I still haven't seen Mallrats, but I know about it. I know it's got the same characters. And then you've got Dogma, which is also in that universe. In that universe, if that's what you want. It's got all the same characters, right? But all these movies are so far separated that how could we, can we even really call them sequels? Or are they?
Well, they're not sequels. They're their own movie.
Are they spin-offs?
No, because for one thing, the only recurring characters in there are just Jay and Silent Bob. The same actors come back, but they're playing different characters.
Are they playing different characters? Oh, well, I guess so.
Yeah, like the guy who played Dante Hicks in Clerks. You see him, I think, in Dogma, but he's playing a reporter.
Okay, I guess when I saw these movies, I wasn't, and I'm still not, the type to really recognize actors and characters, or care. So I guess that detail went over my head, and please forgive me. It's been a very long time since I've seen these movies as well. But anyway, go ahead.
Another example, Jason Lee in Dogma played basically the devil, or at least just some evil character. But in Mallrats, he played some guy named Brody, who was a comic book nerd.
Okay. So then are these movies in the same universe, or does it just... So you're saying there are actually several different movies that just happen to have the same two characters in all of them?
Pretty much.
All right. So that just means I'm wrong that they were sequels, and okay, and then that means Clerks 2 is the only real sequel to that, unless I'm missing something. How was the
Jay and Silent Bob Reboots, which is basically just a Member Berries movie.
Yeah, I think you've told me about that, and it didn't come out very good.
Nah, I mean, the whole joke was to make fun of reboots, remakes, and sequels while being all three at the same time.
Interesting.
Yeah, and to some extent, it worked, but this is when people started to notice that that Kevin Smith was starting to go woke, you could say. Now,
Yeah.
I thought that was part of the joke, but some people interpret it as, no, he is starting to sell out.
Mm.
Now, there is going to be a sequel to Clerks 2, called Clerks 3, obviously, and this seems to be another Member Berries movie where the character Randall has some sort of a heart attack. He decides he wants to do something with his life. What does he do? He decides to make a movie about being a clerk, and he's basically making the first movie.
Okay, so that's just Kevin Smith telling his own story.
Pretty much.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's probably not going to be very good. Kevin Smith hasn't done anything good in a good while.
He lost a lot of credibility after Masters of the Universe.
Oh yeah. So let's see here. The next thing I wanted to tackle was because I've got Story Edge, the guy who suggested tonight's topic in my Discord here, and he's I want to read off the gosh darn. Forgive me, this is going to take a minute. He's got a couple of paragraphs here. But he said, I wish I could have come into the stream to talk about Despicable Me 2. Has everybody seen Despicable Me 2? I've seen Despicable Me. I did not think it was very good.
I remember that movie because when I bought my laptop, it had a 3D screen, and that's the only movie I had that was 3D. So it burned to my memory at this point.
Alrighty then. So now that I haven't seen Despicable Me 2. I only saw the first one. I didn't like it, but let's see here. Because I think it's a legit good sequel. I said, tell me why. He says, it feels like a really natural follow-up. It does things with the ending of the first movie. The first movie was pretty complete in itself, but the second one essentially shows what's come from the ending. Former villain quits villainy and adopts 3 children. What from that? You get to see him enjoying being a dad. The fallout of him quitting villainy. Let's see, struggling to find a new line of work. I'm trying to find a way to summarize this. So it basically is a really good continuation. And he also says something worth noting is pre-planned sequels versus not pre-planned sequels. And we talked a little bit about that at the beginning. And I certainly think that pre-planned sequels have a much better chance of being good than not pre-planned ones. Are we in agreement there?
I'd say so.
Yeah, Star Wars is a good example of a not pre-planned sequels. You know.
Well, they were pretty pre-planned. They just had horrible planning.
Same thing, basically.
Well, I would have argued that not pre-planned is like, hey, we had this movie that did really good. Like, for example, I don't think Ryan Reynolds thought Deadpool was going to do really good because he made it on a relatively low budget. And yeah, a lot of fans wanted it, but like, you know, he had to fight with the studio the whole way. So he probably didn't think he was going to be able to do a sequel. And then he managed to be able to do a sequel. Now that's an example, like I said, of him, of a sequel that, an unplanned sequel that managed to be good, which I think are rare. With Star Wars, those sequels were definitely planned. They always wanted to, everybody who could have gotten their hands on Star Wars always wanted to make more Star Wars because Star Wars is a money printing machine and has been since the 1970s, or at least 1979. I don't know.
Well, not so much nowadays.
Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is they planned it and they bungled it. So that's the differentiation I'm making there. Does anybody else have an issue with that definition?
So, sir, you're going with a more vague one. Where it was like they either did plan to make sequels at all, no matter if the sequels themselves weren't necessarily planned, or there was never a plan for sequels.
Yeah, if you made
mind going straight to
if you made the first movie and didn't think you were going to get a sequel, and then it got really popular, and then you're like, oh, I need to make more of these because it's a money printing machine, then that is not pre-planned. Star Wars, everybody always wanted to make more Star Wars. There was going to be sequels eventually to Star Wars, no matter who bought Star Wars. And there's a difference between not planning and then planning but having a horrible plan. You guys follow me here?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
Okay.
So for Toy Story 2, that would count as not being pre-planned just because of how he went.
Probably. I don't. That
almost didn't exist.
Well, that's a little outside of it almost didn't exist, not because of anything in with the planning or in with the production. There was an accident that caused caused the main movie to get real. They almost deleted the movie. Thankfully, someone had a backup. That's just ghosts in the machine happen, errors happen, things like that. Paladin Pony T just
I
said
just
something.
wanted to point that out just because.
Yeah. So I don't now when you make the assertion of, by my definition of planned and planned and not planned, then you have to assign intention, right? Like and maybe there's examples out there, because we can't really know the intention of the artist, of the people who wrote these things. Like, did the guy who wrote Terminator ever want to make a Terminator 2? Same thing with Alien. Did he? These are questions that we have to ask. Did the people who wrote Toy Story think, okay, this is going to get really big and then we're going to make Toy Story 2 and then how are we going to expand the story from there? Or did it just kind of fall into their lap? These are questions I don't really
think it fell into their lap.
Yeah. So you got to be careful when you're assigning intention like that. You can guess, but without the people who actually made it here in front of me, I don't want to say anything for certain and look like the jerk who's wrong. I do that enough already. So let's see here. I think there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. Actually, I'll use that to transition into the next one, into the next question, which, is technically the beginning of audience participation here, because I think it was Paladin Pony T that said in the chat, how would we fix bad sequels that we've seen? Angel, what do you think?
I'm not quite sure. I can't think of any solutions at the top of my head.
Really? Okay, let me ask this question real quick. What percentage of movies out there do we think should stay standing alone? Oh, and that reminds me, DJ, you actually had something I wanted to get to that as well. So, what movies out there should just stand alone and not have any sequels? And this can be whether or not they actually have a sequel in reality. Like Cruizer, can you think of anything?
Incredibles.
Incredibles. Yeah, Incredibles 2. That was a good standalone. But I think Jaws. Yeah, Jaws definitely didn't need a sequel in my opinion. Incredibles 2 is interesting, though, because there was definitely more story to tell. It did end up being very similar to Incredibles 1, with some aesthetic differences, really, when you get down to the story. I would say, Elastigirl is much more sleuth and deduction than Mr. Incredible was in the first movie. So
I don't think Incredibles 2 was executed very well, personally.
Mm-hmm. But
I think it should have gotten a sequel, but I don't think the sequel was done very well.
I'll follow up on that in a second here, but I was just gonna say Incredibles 2 definitely did answer some questions, because there could very well be a question of what happens next. Okay, so you're gonna be heroes and supers out in the spotlight now, even though even though it is illegal, and you follow that up right at the beginning of the movie. It's like, okay, you just fought this giant thing. You didn't even catch the villain. You destroyed half the city. Someone's going to have to pay for all this. There's a reason why we didn't want supers doing this kind of thing anymore. And then the rest of the movie was about, trying to change the stigma around that while fighting the villain. DJ, just out of curiosity, why didn't you think it was very good?
Mostly revolving around the villain. I think
okay.
it would have been better if it was an actual villain and not just a twist.
That was you know what, I agree with you there, because I saw that twist coming a mile away, because they did it in the first movie, the same twist.
And it was done better.
Yeah, I would agree. Can anybody else think of movies that don't need a sequel or didn't need a sequel?
This one's gonna get me some heat, but I don't think Encanto should get a sequel.
Encanto shouldn't have existed in the first place.
No, I think Encanto's a very good movie.
Encanto is not a very good movie.
Yes, it is.
Oh God, no!
You're just thinking of that stupid Bruno song. Just stop.
Yeah, no.
We don't talk about Bruno.
Yeah, someone was gonna frickin' do it. No, I just don't think it was a good movie. It's just magical family drama. Listen, if you're gonna make your movie about magic,
all it is a drama.
If you're gonna
drama,
if you're gonna make your movie about magic, don't make it about family drama. There's more interesting things here.
It's not about magic, though. It is about the family drama.
Oh God, I'd have to watch. I would have to listen. I have done my best to repress that movie, because so I would have to watch it again to get specifically into the plot holes I saw and the questions that I had in the time being there. But I really don't want to freaking watch it. Okay, go ahead. Yeah. So it doesn't need a sequel. Then what?
Yes. I would say it doesn't need a sequel because it told its one story. It had the story it told of the family drama. The family drama is complete by the end. The house is back to normal. Our main character has found her place and helped the others find their place as well, to where the sequel, because they are making a sequel, I'm pretty sure that's been confirmed. Part of that is going to fall flat because some part of the previous character's resolutions is going to be undone in the sequel. I can just feel it. Someone's going to not have their place anymore, or someone decides it's no longer what they want, and it's going to be... Bleh. It just needs to be on its own. I don't care how much people want more. They're not going to make a good more.
All right.
They're going to milk it. It's going to be Frozen 2 all over again.
What were you going to say, Neo?
Also, another movie popped in my head that definitely do not deserve a sequel. At first, I was going to say Boss Baby Back in Business, but then I remember Cloudy of a Chance of Meatball 2 exists.
Neither of those movies needed to exist in the first place. Boss Baby did not need to exist. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs did not need to exist. Why did they get a sequel? Why did they exist, and why did they get a sequel?
Well, the first Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs was a fun movie.
Yeah, the first one, but then the second one just killed me as I tried to watch it multiple times.
The second one's not a good movie, but I still love the leak joke. I don't care.
All right.
The leak in the boat still gets me laughing.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. That was good.
That's like the one good joke.
What movies do we think had a bridge too far? Like where did it officially become sequelitis? Like let's say here's a movie series.
The Land Before Time.
Land Before Time is a wonderful example.
That had like 14 sequels.
Poor Don Bluth.
Don Bluth was only involved in one of them.
I know.
Yeah, now that was The Land Before Time, the original, was an amazing movie.
And Alpha and Omega, that didn't need sequels.
I was so surprised it had sequels.
I'm actually going to throw one of my favorite franchises under the bus here. I'm going to say Saw.
Yeah.
Oh God, there's so many Saw movies.
Yeah, I am a huge Saw fan, but after a certain point, I'm like, it just kind of felt like, okay, who's Jigsaw pissed off with now? Insurance? Okay, yeah, you can make some shitty commentary about that. It's like, guys, stop. Okay, yeah, find a way to end this. And when they did the final chapter, I think that was a proper end to that franchise. Everyone's story was told. Every character had closure. The audience now knows. It's done.
Well, that could have been done at the end of the first movie and just left it there. Like, and that's something I wanted to ask you, is that horror movies especially have like some of the words, like, what are there, 20 Jason movies now? Why is it like that?
For the fun of just seeing gore, essentially. The whole point of the slasher genre was just the fun of seeing people die in a mutilated way.
Okay, so horror fans are just basic. Got it.
Try to think of it this way. Try to think of it like the ending of the Home Alone movie, only bloody. That's what they get.
I don't know. Home Alone was pretty metal in itself. Those guys would be dead so many times.
The second one, oh God.
The skeleton one. Yeah, that one scared me as a kid.
Oh, the second one was really good though. Like that was a good expansion on that. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
My point though was that for a lot of people, when it came to the Home Alone movies, the highlight was the traps. It was those two going through a lot of pain and suffering. That's where people got their entertainment from. And when it comes to horror films, it's the same thing with the people who get killed. You know, that's their entertainment value.
Horror fans are weird. Let's go back here. So DJ, you kind of wanted to talk about, how do we end a series? Like when do we know it's too much? Or, I'm putting words in your mouth here. Do you want to clarify what you meant when you expanded on the topic yesterday?
It almost needs to be a topic of itself, but we can do like a micro version of it here. Basically, with how big nostalgia is these days, at what point do series need to just be left alone?
Can you give me an example of
do things need to keep coming back? Do we need these reboots, remakes, sequels? Does all this need to keep happening? At what point do we just stop?
If it stops printing money.
Well, I get the business aspect of it, but at what point in entertainment does it just become noise and it should just stop?
Well, here's how
I would say.
Oh, go ahead, Neo.
I would say after the third movie, because it seems like every time after the third movie, they forget how continuity works.
So it sounds like that. That is a writing issue there. You got to make sure you have the same writers and the same vision, that you're working off the same story. But at that point, you're pre-planning your sequel, which is, as we talked about earlier, is almost essential. Let me think for a second here. So here's the thing. If you want that, DJ, if you want series to be left alone, then everybody on this panel and all 19 people viewing the stream right now, you all need to send this stream out to everyone you know with the message of, do not go see any more sequels. Just don't.
That's still on the business aspect of things. I'm talking about the creative.
Okay.
Because I know the business aspect is never going to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just at where is the limit? I want to know where the limit is, and if there can be a limit, because
Well,
I feel like there isn't,
I
but
think
I feel like there should be.
I think Neo said it best when you. I mean, you got to have a story that you tell. You got to have an idea of where you want your characters to end up at the end of that story, and you got to keep all your writers at the point where you break your own continuity. Then you're screwed.
For me, going back to the whole Saw thing, it just kind of, after a while, it just kind of felt like, okay, seriously, how far back did this guy plan ahead? Like, I'm not buying this. Because a series like Saw was meant to be, to make you feel like this could actually happen in the realm of reality. But after seeing, like, how far back he planned ahead, it's like, dude, come on, really?
It's like if you would have need to have planned so far ahead that you wouldn't have even known you had cancer in the first place. And then, if you started planning right as you found out you had cancer, the cancer would have killed you long before you got past the third movie. But a horror movie being really bad after the third installment is really something we all should have saw coming.
But
there we go.
Jinx.
And now that I got that. Now that I got that out of my system, let's actually get into audience participation here. Trent says, for audience participation, I recently mentioned in a comment in A Buck to the Face, Keep Calm and Flutter On, that there seemed to be an alternate continuity between the opener and the commentary. And yeah, I mean, okay, so let me just clear this up. A Buck to the Face does have a little bit of a story to it throughout the seasons, and it's mostly just sort of hinted at in the opening gags as you get sort of the idea of what my life is like and where I'm at and what my family and my friends are like and how I interact with them, kind of thing. But it's not until season 6, like the end of season 6 and through season 7, where I really try to start playing parallel. So back then I was just having fun reacting. And now I'm more invested in telling the story and making the series better than it was. So hopefully that clears it up. There's no errors. It's just the opening gags were just, I'm gonna relate something to the episode before I get into the actual jokes. And the example of Keep Calm and Flutter On, Brawny was looking for the Discord statue so he could take a picture of it. And it was no longer there because Discord had been released. You know, which is at least and if you have to explain the joke, there is no joke, but that's what my intention was there. Doug's Film and TV says, I think to make a good sequel is in the writing. When I first watched a New Generation movie, okay, so he's talking about G5. I thought it was good, but when we got to Make Your Mark, I think the writing was not good. Now, I didn't think the writing was very good in either of those things, and now you're going from a movie where you have a lot of time and a lot of effort to make it as good as possible. But when you switch over to a TV show, all of that is cut down by 3/4 at least, So the writing is just not there in G5 as far as I can tell. What do you guys think? So he's saying what I'm saying, in that the only thing you need for a good sequel is good writing.
Yep, I would agree with that.
But listen,
Also, to not repeat the same story too, to avoid doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a good story and a good writer, but you can accidentally repeat the same story.
For
Cruiser, what
the
were you
writer
gonna say?
for starters, the writer for G5 was the same writer for Make Your Mark. So there you go.
Yeah.
Make Your Mark is G5.
The writing is definitely a big part of it, but there's still the performances within the cast. I mean, can you make you have your material, now can you take that material and make me invested in this character?
It's possible to make a good script into a bad movie. It is very possible, and actually very easy unless you're very, very careful to take a really good story and just screw it up, either in the directing, in the cinematography, in the action, in the blocking of the action, in the acting itself. There's a million ways to screw it up. In the editing, it is impossible to turn a bad script into a good movie, because the script is the foundation for everything. In order to make a bad script into a good movie, you would have to first make the script good. So that's the problem we're dealing with there. Commodra Steel says, what about the John Wick movies? Now, to my understanding, full disclosure, I have not seen the John Wick movies. I want to. They look fun.
Either.
But from what I understand, from what I've heard, the John Wick movies are all one continuous continuity. So the question becomes, was that planned, and how well was it executed? I don't know the answer to the first, and I haven't seen them, so I can't make any calls on the second question. Does
I
anybody?
can't either.
Nobody here's seen the John Wick movies.
No.
I've seen them all, and so far it's pretty much like you say, a continuation. It's hard telling if it was all planned out or wasn't, because it's very good at continuing that storyline pretty well.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the thing. We're gonna have a party at my place. We're gonna put on the John Wick movies, and we're gonna spend the weekend just doing that and shoveling pizza. Sound good, guys?
Sounds
Means
good.
I gotta go to Florida.
You say that
Or you
like
could
it's a
just
bad
do a
thing.
watch party.
Listen,
It is
Florida.
a bad thing. Florida's too hot.
Oh, quit being a baby.
I don't like heat.
Deal with it.
No.
You get used to it.
I'd rather go to Canada.
I'd rather you not be such a wimp, but it looks like neither of us are getting what we want. Paladin.
You never get what you want.
I know, that's the whole joke of my character, isn't it? Paladin Pony T says, TMNT, The Secret of the Ooze was good. Paladin Pony T is extremely wrong. Paladin Pony T should stop having opinions.
Everyone knows it was the Michael Bay turtles that were the best.
I would sooner take Michael Bay's Turtles over The Secret of the Ooze.
Oh.
Now listen,
Quite a bold claim coming from you.
the original live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles released in 1990 is one of my all-time favorite movies. I will say that without irony. It's fun. It's got good characters, good acting. The choreography is really good. Before you even consider the fact that those are 50-pound rubber suits that are completely blind, right? So those actors in there cannot see.
Dang.
Yeah,
I know
and
that.
yeah,
You can see through the mouth.
sometimes, but
And sometimes it's cursed.
yeah, they're of course in some of the high definition ones. There's like freeze frames where you can like see the eyes in the mouth of the actors inside. But yeah, that's not the point here. That was an extremely good movie. But then kids watched it, and we got all the soccer moms that were like, "Oh my God, they're swinging weapons! It's so violent!" Right? So now we can't use weapons, and and you can't actually have the good jokes. So now you gotta because now it's made for kids, which
And
is
then we got Turtles 3.
yeah. So I would.
I'm so sorry.
I actually got more enjoyment out of the Michael Bay Turtles than I did The Secret of the Ooze. And maybe it's just because The Secret of the Ooze crashed so hard after how amazing, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was in 1990. So yeah, and that movie had its own thing, because like the original comic of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a gritty parody, which is crazy, because all the comics at the time were really gritty and graphic like that. But it was just like, okay, so the creators were just throwing stuff at a wall, and we're like, okay, what's popular right now? Freaking ninjas. what else is in every comic? Freaking New York City. Okay, so we're just gonna make ninjas in New York City. Frick, what are we gonna do? There's already like 30 comics like that. Freaking turtles, and the turtles were just totally random. And look what it turned into, right? Just talk about a stroke of luck there.
Well, there's one thing though that the ooze gave us. Go ninja, go ninja, go! Go ninja, go ninja, go!
Yeah, and I'm gonna. No.
Even Kamodra in the chat.
Yeah,
Plays the ninja rap.
Yeah, I know. Just don't play the ninja rap. I mean, the movie could not have gotten much. I was like, this movie can't possibly be worse. And then Vanilla Ice shows up, and wouldn't you know it, they found a way to make it worse.
Everyone knows the best rap is the Naked Mole rap.
What the frick is that?
Kim Possible, dude.
Okay, no.
Watch Kim Possible.
Oh my God, no. Kim Possible wasn't a good show either. I don't care what you freaking Disney nerds think.
Brawny, you have no taste.
I'm not going to take that criticism from a Disney nerd, okay?
Who
It
still
doesn't matter.
gets
You're gonna take it
money
anyway.
for Star Wars.
What'd you say, Cruiser?
Who still gives money to Disney because of Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. That's just you're just stacking
Not
on
giving
the
them any
points
money for
against you.
Star
You are ruining your own credibility here. The only way you could possibly make it worse is if you had a soundboard.
Oh wait,
That's not related.
Yeah, exactly.
I also am not giving them any money for Star Wars. Thank you.
Do you have a Disney Plus subscription?
Through my phone.
Do you?
So you
Look,
do-
it matters. You're giving.
No, it's free.
Bullshit.
I'm not giving them money.
Bullshit. They are getting money from you one way.
They're getting it
or
from
another.
Verizon, not me.
Yeah, and you're giving money to Verizon.
Yeah, but I'm not paying for the service. It's just part of the account.
I think we're splitting hairs here, and I don't have very many hairs left to split, so I'm not gonna. We're gonna. Okay, so the point is that I was originally talking about how gritty the Ninja Turtles comics were, but they got really popular, so of course they had to make a toy line, and when they make a toy line, they got to make the kids show to advertise the toy line. So what was it, like 1989? The cartoon for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles started airing. And
Roughly.
yeah, and that got really popular. So when they made the movie, it was like they sort of modeled it after the comics, and they told the story of the original first arc of the comics, but then they also carried over the turtle personalities from the kid show, and it came out really good. And then they screwed it up because they just they just kept aiming more for the lower common denominator and just ruining yourself. Alrighty then, that was all the questions I had noticed from the chat. Did anybody else see anything there that they wanted to address?
Nah.
No?
Cosmina Inspira asks, what about sequels that act like reimaginings these days or soft reboots?
Can we think of any examples of that off the top of our heads? Because I don't know. I'm not very in tune with pop culture. I never have been, so I can't really think of anything like that off the top of my head. Anybody
Would
else?
that technically be
2016?
Ghostbusters 2016?
That counts.
Would it? I didn't see it.
Good.
It's
Keep it that way.
Fine.
Mm.
Surprisingly, Chris Hemsworth's the best character in the movie.
Yeah, but they made him extremely dumb.
Yeah, he's more of a himbo than Thor is still. Just barely.
Alrighty then. Okay, so anything else, or should we wrap this up?
Yeah, wrap it up.
All right, yeah, I think we've had a good conversation. So thanks to everybody for coming out and watching the stream. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope to see you next time. Big thanks to all of my generous supporters on Patreon. Before I get to that, though, I'm getting ahead of myself. Cruiser, one thing you learned today. Final thoughts and one thing you learned.
Basically what you said, that the foundation for anything comes down to the writing.
All right. And anything you learned, or should we move on?
I just told you what I learned.
Okay. I didn't realize it was for two separate statements. DJ, Closing comments and one thing you learned.
Really feel like much was learned today. This was definitely a lot more of a discussion than a debate, really. But I would say it's definitely it's good to know that there's people out there that still understand what a good sequel is, even if it's not the easiest to make.
All right. Neo. Crickets. Angel. One thing you learned and some closing thoughts, please.
Well, I learned the difference between not being planned and poorly planned, as you mentioned with like Star Wars.
Well, those are just my definitions, and I welcome any challenge on those definitions. I was just making things up. I was just making things up for how I define things. But yeah, I'm glad if you pulled something out of that. Then I'm glad. Neo, are you still there?
Hey,
Yo,
Neo.
guys, Neo died.
Gong.
Just effing the chat for Neo. All right. Well, thanks to everybody who came out. I hope you have, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the show, and I hope to see you again soon. Shout out to all my very generous supporters on Patreon, especially those on the $10 and up tier. These guys are Princess Heather Blossom, Shady Oak Ministry, Sid McConroy, Autoknight, Emerald Spencer, Senko, Kyle Christensen, DJ Skywalker, who's with us tonight, Rein-Kun, Morningstar, Pony Cordero, QFlash, Billy Henline, Alden, MacManx, EasyModeGamer, Canto Acrylic, VA, Zoroark 720, Mr. Sonic 31, Dark Malcontent, author of the Metaverse series. If you like music, fan fictions, or just more pony stuff, I would highly recommend checking out any one of those links in the description. Neo Anton makes some pretty good art as well, and his commissions are open, so be sure to search him up on DeviantArt. I think I forgot to put his link in the description. I better fix that. Anyway, have a wonderful weekend. God bless. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you all next time. If you would like to be on the show, I'd love to have you. Let's just get you on the Patreon for $1 a month. There's plenty of other perks on the higher tiers as well, so check that out. And everyone say good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
And may the force be with you.
Don't steal my shtick.